Hi everyone, so today I'm just going to do a very short extras or preview show, and I'll probably paste this onto the end of the main show next week for anybody that doesn't subscribe to the shorter episode. And basically this is for two reasons. Firstly, there were two things happened this week that I was waiting to happen before I made comment on them, and that was Ann Coulters' book launch and Nigel Farage's visit and possible endorsement of Donald Trump. But also because I finally got my new microphone. I really wanted to test it out before the main show on Monday. And by finally, I mean it was supposed to arrive last Tuesday. But as per usual, the companies that decide to take over the planet, and in this company's case, they are looking to take over not over only just the planet, but outer space also. So yes, I'm talking about Amazon. Anyway, a massive fuck around, and I'll probably get into a massive diatribe on Monday's show about this, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, so to Farage and Coulter, so I had a gut feeling that something was going to become newsworthy from Ann Coulter's book launch, but I didn't think it would be as it turned out to be. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, I thought that Nigel Farage's visit would have been more news-breaking than it actually was. But for all intents and purposes, it was a total flop. So let's start there. Okay, so for my American friends, if you don't know who Farage is yet, he's a dumbass that entered politics on the single banner of getting the UK out of the European Union. And for 17 or so years, he did this as a member of the European Parliament. That's right, the person whose only political goal was to prove that the European Union Parliament, or the European Union as a whole, was ineffective, spent 17 years in the European Parliament making ineffective speeches on how ineffective the Parliament was. His whole career was a 17-year filibuster. And now, as I talked about a few weeks ago, now that he has got what he wanted, freedom and independence from the kingdom, from the European Union, he has decided to move to Greece. Stranger yet, it seems that he was spotted in the queue at the German consulate's office. Now, this is a person that until very recently was the leader of the populist political party, and still today, as a member of the European Parliament, was standing in a queue at the consulate of his wife's fatherland. Okay, so he says that he was there for family business, but surely for any other business, he would have direct access to the consulate staff, right? I mean, as much as I don't like the system, as former UKIP leader and current MEP, he has some sort of VIP status. But there is something fishy going on there, and the rumour mills are abound with speculation, including, as is his right to do so, many are suggesting he was there to submit his dual citizenship documents, which apparently is something that one must do in person. Anyway, speculation aside, when Barack Obama visited the UK just prior to the Brexit referendum, Knucklehead took the opportunity to denounce the move and said this on Sky News. Have a listen.
President Barack Obama, he's just gone, and then Hillary Clinton weighs in that. I mean, do you object on the basis that they should just keep their noses out in spite of the fact that they're the most powerful nation on earth and have a special relationship with this country?
Well, I think, if we were to intervene, if a British Prime Minister was to intervene in a presidential election, America would go absolutely berserk and say this was ridiculous outside interference. I'd rather he'd said nothing.
And then there was this from Fox News.
Monstrous interference. I'd rather he
Monstrous interference?
Yes, I'd rather he stayed in Washington, frankly, if that's what he's going to do. I mean, come on, you wouldn't expect the British Prime Minister to intervene in your presidential election. You wouldn't expect the British Prime Minister to endorse one candidate or another, and nor...
He thinks it's a good thing for you.
Well, perhaps he's another one of those people who doesn't really understand what it is.
So maybe Farage needs to heed his own advice. That being said, I don't think his appearance had the impact that Farage had thought it might. Probably, as it feels like Dum Dum had him pacified a little bit. Because, as it seems, #LoserDonald is flip-flopping once again, and this time on immigration, which is causing a bit of embarrassment for Ann Coulter on the day of her book launch. What happened there? Well, In her book titled In Trump We Trust, she states there's nothing Trump can do that won't be forgiven, except change his immigration policies, which, on the same day that Coulters was launching her book, in the home of Trump's now new campaign manager, Stephen Bannon, oh, what sweet glory, Trump's biggest supporter in the house of Trump's campaign manager gets the word that Dum Dum has announced that he's going to offer undocumented immigrants legal status. Now, he said this in a town hall taped on Tuesday, the day before the book launch, with Fox News' Sean Hannity. He said that undocumented immigrants could pay back taxes to gain legal status, but he emphasises that there will be no citizenship. Have a listen.
I go through and I meet thousands and thousands of people on this subject, and I've had very strong people come up to me, really great people come up to me, and they've said, Mr. Trump, I love you. But to take a person that's been here for 15 or 20 years and throw them and the family out, it's so tough, Mr. Trump. I mean, I have it all the time. It's a very, very hard thing.
You also seem to be indicating there might be something other than they have to go back.
Look,
am I reading that right?
We have to follow the laws of our country. We have to follow.
So that means they go back.
We have to follow the laws.
And you have been sort of indicating that there will be some flexibility. That you originally you had said they're all out and there was a big brouhaha, but you're saying that if somebody can prove that they've been here, proven to be a citizen, but well, here's the big question though.
Go ahead.
No citizenship.
No citizenship. No citizenship.
Everyone agree with that? All right.
I mean, go a step further. They'll pay back taxes. They have to pay taxes. There's no amnesty as such.
Now, what he just did there was the equivalent of removing all the vowels out of the English language on the same day that Samuel Johnson published a dictionary of the English language. Now, we know that Trump doesn't read any of his briefings, and he has said that he prefers to get his information from the cable news networks. So it's pretty fair to assume that Donald didn't read any of the advanced copies of Coulters' book, but surely someone must have put two and two together. This was taped, Donald Trump was taped the day beforehand. Someone in his team must have seen the taping and also knew the context of Coulters' book, right? Of course it's right. People knew about this, but Trump doesn't give a rat's ass about any of it. Everything he does is a scam. The big difference between Trump and Coulter and Farage is the latter two are just full of vile hate and bigotry. Farage, as you'll recall from a few weeks ago, was a fascist even in his early school days. He sang Hitler Youth songs at school and worshipped the English fascists. Farage didn't really want the UK to get out of the EU. He just wanted to fuel the hate fires. If Farage really wanted an independent United Kingdom, he wouldn't have quit his party. He would have rallied and stood in a general election. But he wants to be the loser. He wants to stand on the soapbox and bleat like an orphaned lamb about how immigration is the ruination of the kingdom. Trump, on the other hand, is just a con man. He always has been. I'm not just talking about the way he conned banks and financiers. He conned mum and dad investors, and when his developments went bust, he said that they were better off losing their deposits than losing the value in a falling housing market. Or with Trump University, conned students by saying that he'll be making appearances, but had cardboard cutouts of himself put in place so that they could take photos with it. And now he is conned his most ardent supporters. He will tell you whatever it takes for you to believe him. Credit where credit is due, at least Coulter and Farage stand their ground and never deviate from their bigotry. Now, just before I finish off, have a listen to what Nigel said at Trump's rally.
I think that you have a fantastic opportunity here with this campaign. You can go out. You can beat the pollsters. You can beat the commentators. You can beat Washington. And you'll do it by doing what we did for Brexit in Britain. We had our own people's army of ordinary citizens who went out and delivered leaflets, who went to meet people where they worked and where they socialised, who convinced and inspired people. to go out, if this was the one and only time in their life, and to vote for change. So my advice to you, if you want change in this country, you better get your walking boots on. You better get out there campaigning. And remember, anything is possible if enough decent people are prepared to stand up against the establishment. Thank you very much indeed.
And you know what? Nothing he said there was untrue. It is frighteningly true. But what he doesn't say is what the after effects are. To start with, he didn't mention that now he is fleeing the country to go to Greece. He didn't mention that at least 4 million Brexit voters have come forward to say they didn't actually want to win. They just wanted to scare the government. He didn't mention the massive increase in hate crime that's been directly attributed to the referendum, or the collapse of our economy, or the falling jobs market, or the billions that have been wiped off pension funds in the United Kingdom. Now, I would be quite surprised if anybody on the right is actually listening to this show. But if you are, you're all welcome. But for everybody else, I don't want to tell anyone how to vote. I won't tell anybody how to vote. All I can do is share information, and all you can do is share information. And that's all I ask you to do. If you have any friends or colleagues or family that think that Trump or Coulters or Farage have any points of consideration, and to be honest, you probably won't convince them otherwise, but you can share this episode with them. And maybe if 70 or 80 year history doesn't help them decide, perhaps everything that's happened and is happening in the UK since the 23rd of June will help. Until next time, this is Skeptic Smash Talk.